Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel for another episode of the Woolly Worker Knitting Podcast. Although today is not actually a podcast episode, as you can see from the title, it's another pattern roundup and it is a summary one. I will talk about 10 camisoles / sleeveless tops that have been on my radar and that I definitely want to give a go at knitting this season. Probably not all of them, especially because a lot of them are going to be on 3mm needles or fingering weight yarn, so unrealistic to knit all of them, but I would if I had the time. So in preparation for this video, I've looked at all the patterns, I've looked at the yarns, I've looked at any comments that I could find on the pattern, if there were any problems with it or things to look out for. So I'm looking forward to sharing all that information with you, hopefully give you some inspiration, and you will be glad to know that there are a few underrated designers in there. There are no petite knits and no My Favorite Things knitwear, but all of the patterns in this pattern roundup are from smaller designers, which is very exciting. A few of them I've knitted patterns from before, and some of them I haven't yet, and those could be my first ones. Just before we get into the whole video, I'll do the quick admin stuff. So if you want to find me on other social media, I am on Instagram and on Ravelry with the username @thewoollyworker, like I am here on YouTube. So here you can find more detailed project notes on my patterns on Ravelry, needle size, weights, and also you can check out my queue or my favorites if you're interested in that. And then if you want to see more finished item photos or stories, you can find me on Instagram, and it's always nice to chat on there as well. If you want to send me a message, I always reply. And also if you want to know more about anything that I mentioned in the video, I keep a very detailed description box, so here you'll find all the links that will take you directly to things that I mention. And if I mention colors, for example, I'll put the name of the color and the code of the color just to make it easier for you, because that's what I like when I watch knitting podcasts, so that's why I do it. And also in the description you will find timestamps and chapters, so if you don't want to hear about a specific pattern, you can just click ahead to the next one, or if there's one that you want to come back to later in the future, you can just jump straight to that part of the video. So yeah, that's what I like to do in all of my videos. If you haven't already, I'd love it if you checked out the regular podcast episodes. I think I've got 9 on the channel so far, or 8, so there's a bit of a catalogue here for you to sit back and knit to. Quickly as well, what I am wearing today is definitely not a summery knit. It's my Dartmoor sweater that I've made with Filcolana Peruvian Highland Wool in charcoal and Filcolana Alva in black, which gives quite a nice marled, like dark grey charcoal black fabric. And I really like this jumper. It's very comfy, very soft, next to skin soft. There's no mohair, and it's very warm because Scotland has not gotten the message that it's May and it's still really cold in here. So jumper season is not over yet, but hopefully it will be, and then we can knit all of those camisoles together. In terms of camisoles, what I look for specifically, like myself in camisoles, I am not the biggest fan of spaghetti straps and like I-cord straps, although you will find a few in there that have that, but I'm definitely more on the lookout for thick straps that can hide bras, and even just because they offer more stability, I think, than the I-cords that stretch out like after 2 wears and in blocking. So I definitely prefer bigger straps. I also am not always the biggest fan of rib. I find that it can be a bit boring to do. It looks great, but I find it tricky to just keep doing. And also I can't always predict how it behaves. So will it stretch out? Will it keep its shape? Depending on what yarn content I'm using, like is there any wool? Is there any cotton? How will it behave with wear and with time? So stockinette is easier to study and understand and predict. So I've tried to find some non-rib camis. And as again, a little disclaimer, all of those patterns I personally like, but that's not to say that there aren't any really great out there that I'm missing out on. And I guess my list is going to be quite... I've tried to keep the list varied. Like, there are going to be some fingering weight ones and some DK ones. There's going to be some wool in there and also some summer fibers like cotton and silk, and then some bottom up and some top down. So yeah, I hope that you find something to your liking in there, but let's just get started in the video because it's already been 5 minutes. So the first pattern on my list is the twist loop top by OtherLoop. That pattern has been quite popular recently. I think Handmade by Florence made it a couple of years ago or last year. A couple new podcasters have made it. It's getting tractions. OtherLoop has been really prolific this year. They've released a lot of new patterns. They actually have a sweater version of this top, if a top is not your cup of tea. I think they've got maybe one other design with that loop thing, but it's really nice. It's really elegant, really classy. There's only 3 cables, like 3 cable part. The rest of it is going to be rib, so if you're a beginner for cables, I'd say that would be friendly for you, and the cables don't seem to be too complicated. I've bought the pattern actually, and I've seen the chart, and it really is not too difficult to do. You could even do it without a cable needle. So that one is made on 3mm needles, and it has 6 sizes and is meant to be worn with negative ease. And the yarn that they have is onling, which I think is either not accessible to me or too expensive. So my plans for this is to make it in merino, because something that I've seen Florence do is that she will wear this with a v-neck sweater in like autumn as a layering piece, and the v-neck can show off that first cable, and I think that's the most beautiful thing ever, so I really want to recreate that. So I'm definitely going to make this top not necessarily as a summer camisole, but more as a layering piece, especially because while not completely being a halter top, it does come in a little bit at the shoulder, and if you have bra straps, that might be difficult to hide unless you can cross them at the back. So I really want to make that. I bought the pattern. I'm just trying to find what color I want to do. I was thinking of using Knitting for Olive Merino or Sendless Garn Sunday, and just either go for a light color like white as pictured in the pattern, or again as pictured in the pattern here in like electric blue can be really nice, or like a rusty color could be quite pretty depending on the season, I guess, that I want to wear it. Like if I made it a rust color, it would be really nice for autumn, but that blue is very summery. So what else to say? People say that it definitely takes a while to knit up. It will be a bit of a slog. You start at the top and then you work your way down. So at least you're starting off with less stitches and you're doing the fun construction part, but then towards the end it's just rib for ages and ages. It's not cropped. I think there's quite a bit of length, so you can tuck it in, but I guess you could crop it if you wanted. You could even maybe omit the last cable repeat if you wanted. Then you pick up afterwards for the arm and the neckline, and some people have done some modifications here. Some people have said that the underarms that you pick up, it might be a bit too gapey, so afterwards what they've done is they've added an elastic to just tighten everything back up, especially if they've used cotton. The cotton just stretched out and then lost its shape, which is why, again, I'm leaning towards just using a merino, because that might help me not need to add any elastic afterwards. So yeah, still want to find a color for that, but definitely tempted to knit up that top. I don't think it'll be the first thing that I cast on from this list because I don't have the yarn for it, and I've got yarn for some other ones. So I think that's all I have to say about this pattern. Let's move on to the next one. The next one is the square neck camisole by Garno Slicked, and again, if you've watched Handmade by Florence, you might also know this top, and I'm definitely guilty of only knowing this pattern because she made it. When she made it, it hadn't been released in English, but now it has, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, very unique, and you never see square necks anymore, especially in knitting. It's a very flattering shape. It's also made top down, and you also pick up the edges afterwards to make the finishing. It's also made on 3mm needles. It also has 6 sizes and is also worn with negative ease. So yeah, the tops are quite similar in that sense, but they definitely look different. Although that one is also in rib. I actually have the yarn for this one. Yeah, it's Knitting for Olive Merino, and the color I went for is Nordic Beach. The Nordic Beach is a beautiful grey beige, so greige, which I think doesn't look too much like my skin color, so I think it'll be perfect to stand out. It'll be very like subtle and elegant and neutral. It'll look great with cardigans as a layer, so really looking forward to doing that. The merino, it will be my first time knitting with the Knitting for Olive merino. I've knitted with their heavy merino before and I didn't have any problem with it. I liked it, so I'm looking forward to trying out the thin version of that. Again, I've heard some people make this camisole with cotton merino, and then they were a bit disappointed that it stretched out too much. Again, rib and cotton, I think it's just tricky to find the right balance and the right size to knit up for yourself. Maybe size down because it will stretch out, and those things are meant to be worn with negative ease as well. So yeah. The other thing that people have mentioned about this pattern is that it assumes prior knowledge in terms of some of the techniques. So for example, like an elastic bind off or picking up stitches or grafting, it doesn't go too much into detail about them. I've not bought the pattern yet, so I can't tell for sure if that's true, but it's just something that I've seen on Ravelry people mention, the clarity / difficulty. But if you're familiar with the techniques, you shouldn't have any problem with it. And yeah, I think that one might be on my priority list. I think because I have the yarn already, there's no reason not to. And like I said, I think it would look so good with like a shirt on top, like a linen shirt, or with a cardigan. I think that one is a little bit more cropped, so there's less fabric to tuck in, but again, all of that is customizable depending on what you wish. So I guess I won't go into too much detail about it. There's nothing else to say. It's just a very simple, timeless staple piece. That, and then the other one, although that one is a bit more simple because there's no cable, so really just neutral. Okay, the next one is a bit more special and is also lesser known. So that one is the Argyll by Claire Lakewood, and it was in Pom Pom magazine, I believe. Yes, it was in summer 2019. So it has been around for a while, I guess, like 4 summers. And yeah, the reason I want to do this one is because it uses very interesting yarns. Like I think it uses Quince & Co, which I don't have here. But I was thinking of using any sort of linen cotton blend, maybe silk, just something that's very drapey is what you want. Like you just want it to be really thin and drapey. That one is made on 3.25mm, but it's still fingering weight, so I think that will make it less dense and the fabric will be even more flowy. That one, depending on if you're buying it as a single pattern on Ravelry or in the issue of Pom Pom magazine, it has 9 or 16 sizes. But the smaller and the bigger are the same. It's just that the size range has expanded to include in-between sizes to get an even more precise fit, which I think is really great. Especially with patterns like that where every centimeter matters and you really want to get the size that's the best for you and you don't want to have too much of a gap between sizes. That one is meant to be worn with positive ease. And as you can see from the photos, it's very interesting because it's stripy and the stripes go in different directions, which is all due to the construction of this top, which I've read the description on Ravelry of how this top is constructed and I still cannot visualize what is happening. So as a confident knitter, I just know that I can read the pattern and do it as I'm going and I'm sure it'll turn out okay. But if you're the kind of person that really wants to understand what they're doing before they go and do it, then it might be a bit tricky. It has some ties at the front that you can tie, which I think I love about this top, but my friend Sam from the Sugly Stitch is making this top currently and she doesn't want the ties, so she's making modification to omit them, and a few other people on Ravelry have done that too, so that's definitely something doable if that's the one thing about this top that you don't want to do. The other thing as well is that the stripes have actually a garter ridge bump line, and Sam is omitting that one as well. You can also change the size of the stripes. I think it's just maybe 1 or 2 rounds of the contrasting color, but you could make them even, or you could make them or you can have less stripes. Stripes are just so customizable, aren't they? So you can really do what you want. And there are examples on Ravelry of people who have done modifications. I think there's people who've done it even without the stripes, which is really cool as well. So the yarn I want to use for that, I was thinking of maybe seeing at the end of summer what I have left in terms of leftovers and then using that, because for the contrasting color you definitely don't need much at all. I was thinking of maybe using Antigone by Derorum Natura, and it's 100% linen. I think it would be quite nice to try out this fiber and maybe something less time consuming than a whole t-shirt. And then I also was considering using Tin Linne by Stainless Yarn, because I have this white one for white stripes, but I also have some colored ones. I've got a light green, and a like ochre color, which I think could look quite cool. Like maybe like a blue main color and then like gold stripes. I think that would be really cool. Tin linen, again, is the same composition as Drops Belle and is made of 53% cotton, 33% viscose, 14% linen. My friend Sam is making it with one strand of Meadow by the Fiber Co., which I really want to try out. I'll talk about Meadow a little bit later, but it's definitely a yarn I want to purchase, and I think making a top with it is really nice to try out and sample the yarn before committing to a full garment, because you just need, basically you'd need one ball for main color, one ball for stripes, and then there's a top later on that only uses 2 balls for my size. So definitely a range of different yarns that you could use for this top, but I'd highly recommend just stash diving and seeing if you've got anything in your stash already left over that could be used as stripes for the Argyle top. So yeah, really excited about this one and the construction that it has. I'm really tempted and excited by this challenge, and it's really nice that it has so many sizes available. Okay, the next one is also really exciting. It's the Maya top by Caidree. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She's a quite recent new-ish designer. I think she released this one, well actually she released that one 2 years ago, so it's not that new. She doesn't have that many patterns. It's not like she's a full-time knitting designer. I've bought one of her patterns before. It was a little scarf, so I can say with certainty that her patterns are really, really well written, well detailed. Everything is nice and explained. There's charts, there's tips. It's a bit overwhelming at first maybe when you open it because there's just so much information, but you can tell that it's like an attention for detail and trying to make sure that knitters get the best result of their pattern. So I really applaud that from Bella. And that pattern here is the summer top, Maya summer top, which is made on 3.25mm needles. There's 10 sizes. I think there were 8 before, and she's added 2 small ones and 2 bigger ones, and is meant to be worn with 0 to 4 centimeters of positive ease. That one also comes with a discount on Ravelry if you want. There's a code in the description, and it's also very good money, good bang for your buck, because it is a 2-in-1 pattern. So you can see in the photo she displays it in 2 different ways. I thought that there were 2 different patterns, but actually it's the one pattern, but it's reversible. So the front of it has little buttons and then the back doesn't, but then you can flip that around and you can wear the buttons at the back. And I think that's really gorgeous, and there's another pattern here in my list that will be reversible as well. I think with sweaters you don't want to do that because you want the short rows at the back, like here in my Dartmoor, the neckline comes lower. But with those summer tops, the neckline is here, you know, so it doesn't matter, it won't come and choke you. So, and then the straps will just kind of position themselves and be fine because the straps are so long anyway. So yeah, I think that it's a good move to have reversible camisoles. The other thing about the pattern is that it has 2 different hem finishing. There's just a straight hem and then there's a peplum. So technically there's 4 combinations. There's like buttons peplum, buttons no peplum, and then just the lace peplum and then the lace no peplum. So you can really make 4 different tops or just 2 different tops and then wear them sideways. Anyway, you know what I mean. It's great for versatility, and I look forward to making that pattern. I think, have I bought it? Yeah, I have bought it. So I was originally thinking of using some stash. I have this Drops Saffron in this color. I can't remember the name because I've already wound it up into a cake. This is 3 balls of saffron into one massive cake. And I'm just not sure. I think in here it looks different than my skin color, but in person it's looking very beige. But it could be cool. This is 100% cotton, sport weight, which I don't know if I'm gonna like doing it with that, but I have it already in stash. The other option would be to do it in tin linen if you have a few balls of that. You can also do it in Drops Belle, in Knitting for Olive Pure Silk as well. Basically what you want is drape. That one is made bottom up, which, yeah, that's the first of my list that is bottom up. But it looks like it will be quite interesting because there's just a lot going on. There's lace, there's moss stitch, if you did the peplum, there'd be like that sort of construction as well. So yeah, that was the first pattern that she released, and I can't wait to support her more and do more of her designs as she continues releasing them. Okay, number 5. This one you'll definitely have heard of the designer. It's Sari Nordland, and the design is the Rosalind top. That one is super stunning. It really caught my eye when I was looking for camisoles and sleeveless tops, because like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of spaghetti straps, so I was looking for something that, you know, wouldn't be covering my arms but would still be covering my shoulders. So that's a really good idea to just have a sleeveless top. She also says that if you wanted, you could knit this one up in a like wool content yarn, like merino, and you could wear it as a vest for winter over some things. I think she can be seen wearing it over a dress in the pattern photos, or you can wear it in 100% cotton like she did, or a mix. So this one is DK weight. Here's the first DK weight pattern of the list. Made on 3.5mm needles, comes in 9 sizes, and is meant to be worn with positive ease. It's also made top down, and it's made with laces and cables, which are, I think, just her specialty. I've done her low loose scarf, if you've seen it in my previous episodes, which also had lace and cables, and that was so much fun. I've got one of her cardigan patterns, the Fleuriste, which also has lace and cables, and I can't wait to do all of her lace and cables. I think no one does it like her, and she usually has chart and written instructions for it, depending on what kind of knitter you are, and the patterns are always tip-top in terms of clarity, thoroughness, and like the testing and the editing is on point. So yeah, highly recommend this designer. As you can tell, I have a big crush on her patterns. The yarn, like I said, is 100% cotton in her sample, but what I think I want to try out is Scentless Garn Duo, because that one is, I want to say 50-50, but I might be wrong. It's definitely a blend of merino and wool, and I think that could be a good sort of middle ground. Because it is meant to be worn with positive ease, I'm not as worried about it stretching out with the cotton. So if I was between 2 sizes, maybe I'd size down and then know that the cotton would stretch out a bit. I was wondering what color to do, because once again, her kind of neutral color looks really good on the pattern sample. I've seen some people do it in like black or dark blue, navy, which also looks great. So it's always the trick, isn't it? It's just picking a color and going with it. And I always tell myself, oh, it's okay, nothing is final. I can make one in one color and I can make it again in a different color. But realistically, will I? Like, I have yet to do a pattern twice, I think. So yeah. Need to find a color and then buy some Scentless Garn Duo and then go for it. I think I want to do it this year because it's DK weight, it should be fast, and maybe I could keep wearing it in like September, August as a vest, which could be really cute. It's also made top down, I don't know if I've mentioned that. So the next one is the Ingrid top by Gregoria Fibers. That one is really pretty, it caught my eye, it seemed really simple, and I really like Gregoria Fibers' designs. And that one, the Ingrid top, actually comes in a few different patterns. There's the Ingrid summer sweater, and then the Ingrid winter sweater, just like the Ingrid sweater. So if you're a fan of the pattern motif, but you don't want a summer top, you can make the sweater versions if you desire, which is great. The Ingrid top is made on 3.5mm needles, has 8 sizes, and is meant to be worn with 0 ease. It's a DK weight top. She uses her own line of yarn, but lots of people have made it with Scentless Garn Linne, which is the thicker version of Tin Linne, and the same content. And some people have made it with Drops Bell. So I think Drops Bell is kind of in between Linne and Tin Linne. I've knitted with it on 3.75 needles, so it was closer to a DK. But I've seen people use it interchangeably, Bell and Tin Linne. So it just depends on the needles that you're using. As long as you're happy with the fabric you're getting, then don't get too bogged down on the details. This one I've seen a couple, not negative things, but just things to keep in mind on the Ravelry notes. Some people have said that the armholes can be a bit too wide and too gapey. So if you're wearing a bra, it'll show the top of the bra. The pattern is meant to be worn with 0 ease, as I've said, but people have said that depending on the yarn that they've used, it's stretched out a lot. And again, like, it was baggy. So even the designer herself mentions in the pattern you have to account for stretch, and with wear and time and washes, it will lengthen and then might also widen. So that is kind of putting me off of making that top. I think that's why it hasn't been at the top of my list, but it's definitely deserved a place on this list because it just looks very wearable and a staple knit and fun to do. So it'll just be a matter of keeping your eye out on your gauge. And it's also top down. Okay, the next one I'm super excited about. I really want to make that one. It's the Pebble Top by Lynette. I've just made her Palma tee, so I guess I'm familiar with her pattern writing. It was fine. It was okay. I think it was very, like, less is more, so she wouldn't hold your hand and she wouldn't give you more information than you needed, so you just have to be quite, like, aware of the normal steps of building a sweater or a t-shirt, and then follow the charts, in my case, for the Palma tee. So the Pebble Top, it's made on 3mm needles, only 6 sizes available, and is meant to be worn with a bit of negative ease. It was part of the Isager Breeze collection, which was released recently. A bunch of designers teamed up and made patterns using Isager Trio, mainly. I think all of them were using Trio, basically. So, which was to promote it for Isager. And that one really caught my eye because it's got such the loveliest little crochet detail. Kind of like a picot edge, but it's made with crochet. So she uses Trio 2, which is, I guess, it says here sport. And you're doing it on 3mm needles. She also mentions that you could do it with Trio 1 held with Alpaca 1 to make it, I guess, to have it with a bit more wool content. Alpaca wool, that is. The straps are also made with crochet, which I think would be really great to help it not stretch out as much as like an I-cord or knitted straps would. So I think that would solve my conundrum of not liking spaghetti straps. It's made top down. It's basically like, 4 triangles that you join in the round and then make the crochet edging. So it looks really straightforward and simple. And yeah, I feel like either I'd buy Trio 2 to try it out, or I would do the Trio 1 and Alpaca because I really like Alpaca 1, and I don't know, maybe I want to stay away a little bit from that whole trend of knitting with 2 strands. I think there's been this big movement, not recently, I mean, I don't know, I've not been part of the knitting community for that long to be able to say with confidence recently, but I feel like there's so many pattern designers now who are putting out things to be done with 2 or 3 strands, and I think the agenda behind that is to make us buy more yarn and have different yarn qualities held together. And I wonder if the same effect could be attained with just substituting yarn and finding yarn that has that content. Obviously if you want to marl 2 colors, then yeah, buy the 2 different colors and knit with them both. But if you're people who, for example, hold pure silk from Knitting for Olive double, wouldn't that just be achieved by finding a DK weight yarn that was 100% silk? So yeah, just something to think about. So yeah, I think the top was kind of advertised as being like underwear, loungewear. Like, you obviously, I don't know if you could wear a bra with that, maybe some like boob coverage things. I don't know how much I'd be wearing that out. Maybe if I was like tanning in my like garden. I don't have a garden. I don't know. I think I would be wearing it as loungewear in the house and I wouldn't worry about no bra. But it's something to think about when you're thinking about all those tops is what are you going to wear them with, and are you going to wear sunscreen? I think that's a huge question I always wonder when you see those people modeling their knits on the beach and everything, and it's like, are you washing it every time after you get sand in it? And are you putting sunscreen as you should? What about the edges of all those white tops? Are they going to get yellow? So that's probably why I'm not going to be knitting as much camisoles and sleeveless tops as I will be knitting jumpers this year. But I definitely want to do a few of those tops because of being able to layer with them. Okay, another one here, which is a new to me designer that I've recently discovered. It's the Melidus top by Vert Knit. She's just put out a testing call last week for one of her new designs. It's like an off-shoulder top, which looks really, really pretty. But she also made that top some time ago, last summer. And she also made a dress, the Milidus dress. And the Milidus dress, I think, is a bit more tricky. And she advertises the Milidus top as being like a beginner-friendly, just no frills, cast on and you're done top. Obviously would be faster than making a whole dress. That one is on 3mm needles. It comes in 16 whopping sizes and is meant to be worn with zero ease. She made hers in pure silk from Knitting for Olive, and she also mentions that it might grow with wear. So when she first made it, it had a certain amount of ease. But then as she was wearing it and using it, she noticed that it got longer and it got wider. So you might notice in some photos that the ease is different, which is also something to keep in mind for yourself, maybe size down to keep in mind that it'll go back up. The thing that's interesting with that top, as you may see in the photos, if I'm putting them on screen, is that it's reversible. So again, 2-in-1. So one side of it is a V-neck, and then the other side is kind of a square scoop neck. It's not like the roundest. I think it's quite square looking. I really like it. I like both sides. And the straps also are bra friendly, it seems, and they don't seem to go in too much at the shoulders like a halter top would. She seems to be a really, really great designer, thoughtful, attention to detail and everything. That top is bottom up, so again, something that I'm less attracted to in terms of yarn management for like how much I need and the length I want to reach. But also I think that I like the way that those straps end up when you start from the bottom up. And yeah, if you felt like it, go and knit the dress version of this. I think at some point in the future I might do a pattern roundup for dresses because they're so much rarer, so whenever I see one that I like, I save it away in a folder. And I don't have 10 yet, but when I have 10, I'll make a dress video. I've never knitted a dress. I want to make one, it's on my list this year for Christmas. But yeah, this one is made with the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, which are going to be releasing some new colors very soon, especially shades of blue, which, if you know me, is my favorite color. So I might wait for the new release of the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk and then treat myself to a few balls for a blue version of this top. For my size, I would only need 2 balls of pure silk, so that's really good to keep in mind. I think the biggest sizes use 3 or 4. 4 at the max. So that's a pretty economical top for great results. Okay, the next pattern, number 9, is a cheat. I'm totally cheating, but it's kind of 3 patterns in one, and it's kind of all the camisoles from Caidree. She's quite a known designer, she's very popular, she's got amazing winter designs, but she also is quite prolific in creating beautiful summer designs. And the interesting thing with hers is that a lot of them are made with Cardiff Cashmere Classic and Cardiff Cashmere Brush Light. The one that I like the most is the Home camisole, which is made on 4mm needles with Cardiff Cashmere Classic. It's got 10 different sizes and is meant to be worn with 0 to 4 centimeters of positive ease, so it's DK weight, and it does use like 5 or 6 balls of Cardiff Cashmere for my size, which is quite expensive at £15 a ball. So, you know, if I can make a sweater with 10 or 11 balls of Cardiff Cashmere, do I want to make only a top with like 6 balls? I don't know, you know, it just seems like quite a big investment for just a summer top. And I'm sure you can make it with other yarns, of course. There's a vast variety on Ravelry here. Some people have made it with 100% cotton, some have made it in merino, or the fiber company Luma, which I really want to try. It's one that has wool, cotton, linen, silk, so very drapey, I would assume. So I think there's a problem sometimes when designers only use a certain type of yarn or a yarn that is so specific. It's really hard to think outside the box and think, what could I substitute that with and would it look different? Because this obviously looks like a cashmere camisole. So it's hard to imagine that just being made with cotton, and this is where Ravelry helps. Because even if you go on Instagram on the hashtag, almost everyone is making it with the Cardiff Cashmere. So I'd be looking forward to seeing more non-cashmere versions of Caidree's camisoles, but also that's what they're known for. And if I were to splurge and buy some cashmere for a camisole, I would make one of Caidree's ones. The other one from her that I liked was the Allure camisole, but that one has spaghetti straps, but it has a really nice kind of like drape to it, and I think that one was made with Brush Light, which is a DK. No, it's a fingering. Fingering, and it's extra fluffy. It's a mix of silk and cashmere, and that one would be more affordable, I think, because I need less balls of that. But I like the home camisole better. The other one from Caidree that I noticed was the Remy camisole, which is rib. But like I said, I was trying to stay away from rib a little bit because I enjoy knitting it less than I do stockinette. That one is on DK weight and... Wait, DK, but it has 32 stitches for 10 inches. Yeah, 32 stitches by 34 rows using 375 needles in 2x2 rib. That seems weird, but I don't know. So yeah, number 9 was Caidree's camisoles because I love them, but I don't have the money for it right now, and I want to prioritize non-cashmere yarns for summer. I also don't know how I would behave once again with sweat and sunlight and sunscreen. Let me know if you've made a cashmere camisole. How did that wear? Were you just wearing it again like with cardigans or linen shirts over it for maybe colder days? Anyway, number 10 here, and the final on my list, is the George top, I don't know if you're pronouncing the S, by Joanna Garish, so Caidree by Joanna, which I don't know this designer at all, but it seems to have a few patterns on Ravelry, people who have made it. The top, again, really caught my eye on the Ravelry search when I was looking for camisoles because of the bows on the straps. I think it's the cutest thing ever. They are optional, actually, according to the pattern designer's notes. So if you don't like that, then that could still be a really cute top. I think you can also adjust like how thick and big they are. So there's 2 different options for the bows, or just a no bow option. It's made bottom up, and it's made on 5mm needles, so those are the biggest needles I've mentioned so far, in DK weight, 7 different sizes, 0 to 4 centimeters of positive ease. And that one is made with pure silk held double, so going back to what I was saying before with maybe I wouldn't bother buying twice the amount of knitting for olive pure silk, I would just find a silky yarn that's DK weight already, but it's hard to find. If you know of any good silk yarns, let me know. And it's tricky, I find it, when looking for patterns, because as a knitter, you know, as a customer, what I like are reviews, and that's just in general, isn't it? And when I find people like Petite Knit or My Favorite Things Knitwear that have patterns like the June top, for example, which is a very simple pattern by Petite Knit that is just like a scoop neck, big straps, straight stockinette top, that has thousands of projects on Ravelry with extremely detailed notes of other people, tons of yarns, ideas, etc. That makes me feel more certain about the quality of the product and about the hype, and you know, if other people like it, that means that I will like it, and it gives me ideas and everything for modifications or things like that. The problem is that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where the more projects a pattern has, the more people are going to be clicking on it and bringing attention to that pattern, and you know, podcasters making videos who talk about big designers, it just reinforces people looking to those designers. And then when I see a pattern like this, the George top, that only has 56 projects on Ravelry as of today, that makes me really wary, and I feel like I'm taking a risk by making a pattern that doesn't have that many projects. But it's obviously, you know, knitting is not the only industry where like your talent isn't necessarily 100% correlated with the recognition that you're gonna get. So you could be the most extremely talented designer and not have that much reach, and people wouldn't know about your patterns. That doesn't mean that you're bad, and then vice versa. Sometimes some people are average, but they get so much hype. It's a controversial topic, but what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of patterns here that I've mentioned, and I think I want to, and I'm encouraging you to, I want to try out patterns from designers that have maybe less projects on Ravelry or less projects like tagged with a hashtag on Instagram. And if we give those people a chance and do their patterns and add to the projects on Ravelry and add to the hashtag, we can create that sense of, then we can create some hype and recognition for those lesser known designers. Something that you can do, for example, on Ravelry is if you search for, earlier I was looking for a ruffle sock pattern. So I typed ruffle and I filtered sock. And then by default, Ravelry could tell me like what's hot right now, or like what patterns are being clicked on a lot, or who has the most projects, or who has the most favorites. But what you can do is starting in the reverse. So instead of going on page 1 of hot right now, you could go on page 32 and just start from there. And then that gets rid of all the noise. And then you just get left with regular designers. I think it can be a really good way of discovering new people. And that's how I've discovered a lot of new designers. So that was a bit of a tangent and kind of a finishing note for this video, but I hope that you liked it. I hope that you got some inspiration. I'd love it if maybe you wanted to cast on one of these tops this summer. I'll definitely be casting on a couple of those. I think the square neck cami that I've got a yarn for is a strong contender for my first camisole of the year. Let me know your thoughts below if there are any other camisoles that I've missed that you really like, or if you have any other thoughts about anything that I've mentioned. It's always really nice to hear back from people instead of just being talking at my camera. I hope that you have a really good rest of your day, that maybe you got some knitting done while you were watching this video, and I hope that you're looking forward to summer if you're in the northern hemisphere, and I hope that you get better weather than I am here in Scotland. But yeah, happy knitting and see you all later. Bye!